Welcome to Life of Hair. My name's James Atkinson, and in this week's episode we are going to talk about balayaging. But before we talk about balayaging, I want to just say a little word to you guys out there who are doing that isolation thing. I know it's a bit arduous, I know it's a pain in the butt to be at home, but guys, try your best to enjoy yourself. I've come out for some exercise with my boys. My routine has changed somewhat in the last couple of weeks, become my eldest son's teacher, and I'm sure a lot of you are experiencing the same things in your day-to-day lives. And you know, I think it's good. I'm enjoying it. I think that I'm embracing this time because I'll probably never get this kind of time again with my children in such a confined way. And I know it can be arduous and really tiresome doing all of those things, especially if you're a single parent or you know, you've got lots of children. I mean, I've got 3 children. It's enough to drive me crazy at times. But I am fully aware that this opportunity is a very, very brief window of time that I will never get back. And this one's for the clients. I myself, been a professional hairdresser for many, many years, and I have not done my hair once this week. In fact, I haven't even done it for this video. It is all over the show. And you know what? That's fine. You're not seeing anyone particularly special or super. You're at home with your family, and if they can't take you as you are, then there is no one that can. So just enjoy this time. If you've got a family, then spend as much time with them as possible. If you haven't got a family, and then use this time wisely, learn something, get fit. In this particular episode, we're going to look at a balayage technique, one that I've done a similar thing to before in another episode where you keep it really simple with the pre-section. We're going to use zigzag pattern in this, and yes, I am painting it with a paintbrush, believe it or not. I really like paintbrushes from the hardware store to do balayages with. I think they're better than power painters from Famar. And you know, it's for speed really, and the blend you get is absolutely seamless from a paintbrush. So I highly recommend giving it a whirl. And if you do, then let me know down in the comments. Don't forget, if you enjoy this, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up. That helps the videos get out to lots more people. In fact, all of those things really help the video. So thank you for those of you who have supported the channel over these recent months and years. It has been a great honour to have you along with me on the journey. So until next time, I shall see you in another episode of The Life of Hair.
First things first is the starting point of this colour. We have got a natural level 6 at the top here, going into some lighter pieces towards the ends. Now it looks a little bit lighter than a 6 in that previous picture. That is just due to the lighting of the picture. You'll see it much better here. The pre-section starts with a zigzag from the highest point of the head, or just behind the highest point of the head, down to the back of the ear, and then a zigzag section taken straight down the back, through the natural parting and down to the opposite side. Every section then is subsequently zigzagged throughout this entire technique. This will help you add dimension, and I will explain exactly how this works on this first section. You will see I've elevated my section 90 degrees horizontal to the floor, and this has created some little gullies or troughs because of the V-shapes in the sectioning that we took a minute ago. This will give us some fantastic high points to aim at when we are painting our section. Traditionally, we will see a balayage section being painted on the outside edges. There is nothing wrong with this. However, this gives us quite a uniform look, and it forces our hand to take smaller sections in general. With this particular technique, we can aim at the high points on the section that we want to get the most colour onto. This will give us beautiful ribbons of lightness that run all the way up to the root area. We do always need to remember to saturate those areas more than the areas around them. On every section, we will not be painting all the way through to the ends. You can see clearly the hair is falling away underneath that section. This will be continued throughout. I moved straight onto the side sections because you saw from the pre-section that the sectioning pattern that we took and the crown area and how it was painted. It is entirely up to you how you paint these sections, however, so I didn't feel the need to show you the entire back. I'm sure some of you will be writing comments as we speak saying that you wish you'd seen me paint the entire back. In those back sections we used a diagonal backwards section, and that was to end up with that small triangle of hair on the crown. Working on these side sections, however, we are using a diagonal backwards sectioning pattern, which is very, very important. Now, when I say diagonal backwards is very important, it's more the emphasis on a diagonal section. This will create beautiful softness within your technique. And again, not painting the underneath of the sections is ultra critical to this technique. Working out how big your sections are is really about how many points of light or lighter pieces you want near the root area. For me, in this particular technique, I'm going to be painting roughly 2-inch sections, keeping in that diagonal backwards formation through the sides and working my way up ahead in that way. I will be left with a small triangle of hair as I come up to the parting. Using this paintbrush, as I said in the intro, I find absolutely phenomenal. So easy to create a beautifully subtle blend, easy to distribute the product, and fast to boot. There is nothing better than finding a tool that makes your day much easier. Now don't get me wrong, I know some of you will be watching this thinking I could never take a paintbrush to my client's head. They would think I'd lost the plot. Trust me, when they see the results, they will be sold. You just need to be brave and be confident with the tool that you are about to use and tell them that it is for their best interest for the technique. Moving on to the opposite side now. This is the side where I'll show you the high point and the top of the head. Also, while I was doing this, I also wanted to point out the front hairline. I have painted right along the edge of the front hairline all the way through this technique. It's not going to be like a heavy money piece or anything, but it will give some framing to around the face. In this particular technique, I've used 20 volume in the back, and I have moved up to 40 volume in the front, and I'm going to process it at all the same time. I will get slightly lighter results around the front than I will around the back, even though it has had less time to process. This was something that we talked about in the consultation. She wanted to have a bright pop of colour that was noticeable but not overbearing in the front, and in the back she wanted it to be a little bit softer and more subtle. So I simply just changed my peroxides. That was the best way for me to manage this situation. I'm taking this one strand individually, as you can see, just because it didn't sit very well with the bulk of the hair. It was wanting to fall down continuously, so rather than fight with it, just paint it as one strand and move back on to the rest of the section. Elevation when using zigzag sections, especially when you're painting closer to the head, is absolutely key. There is absolutely no point in using zigzag sections and then not elevating them to utilize the troughs that you created. At this point I decide how big my section is going to be. In this particular instance, I'm going to split this section into two, as it's still a very large section. But rest assured, you don't always have to. It depends on the density of the client's hair as well. This is a super easy, quick technique, as I'd mentioned in the description. It is so straightforward to do. Once you've done it once, you will be absolutely in love with it. I can get this technique done on the shop floor in half an hour, and I charge for a half head of highlights price. Hopefully that will help you distinguish how to charge for it. Equally, because I can get it done in half an hour, sometimes I use it as an add-on service in a half head style for clients that are stuck in their ways with their full head colours I use a very low developer and then I process it for only about 20 minutes. It just gives me a little bit of diffusion and lightness throughout their ends, nothing overbearing, not even as light as we're going to go here. It just gives me that little bit of extra dimension, and then they might come in next time or the time after and ask to go lighter, or once it's grown out, ask to have it back. It's a great way of boosting your services in the future. Whenever I start these techniques, I always start them towards the ends. This is to ensure that I don't get too much product up towards the root area. But I will say in just a second, I do end up with too much product too close to the scalp area. And I show you how I fix that in just a second. Layering the product as you see me doing here, applying a small amount and building up over time is super important in these techniques. You will just note that I have applied too much product too close to the head. I'm going to try and fix it, but instead of using my brush, I'm going to go in with my pinky finger and just disperse the product towards the root area, thinning the product out and giving me the opportunity to fix it right there and then, rather than when I tone the roots. There is our finished technique, ready to process. We're only going to process this technique for around 45 minutes as we don't want it to be too light. Here we have it before we put the toner on. I simply then apply a root stretch colouring technique, which you can see in my other videos, which I will link at the end of this one. It's a very simple root stretch technique that is absolutely foolproof. Sometimes though, I take that technique to a different place. In this particular instance, what I'm going to do is separate the hair into 4 quadrants again, or a hot cross bun section for those of you that trained over here in the UK. Once I've separated the hair into 4 sections, I'm going to take about a 2.5 inch section. It doesn't have to be too accurate, just a big deep section that we can weave a couple of pieces out of. The colour that you see on the roots at the moment is Redken Shades EQ 6NB. I'm going to weave out 2 pieces of hair from this section. I now use 7NB to add dimension and depth through the mid-lengths and ends. I make sure that I do not pick up the pieces that I have just lightened, as it would be pointless obviously to take them back down to a 7. But I do want to create some depth and contrast to the hair around the lighter pieces that I've painted. It is really nice and easy technique to do on your clients when they want that little bit more depth throughout the mid-lengths and ends, but you do not want to do it whilst you are doing the lightener. Paint it about 3/4 or 2/3 of the way down the hair, then simply stretch it towards the ends. This is an incredibly good technique to use if you want to reverse a balayage. Say it's gone a bit too light or it's lost its dimension. This is a great way of creating that distinct separation and contrast that you see in all balayage techniques. You will note as I go through this technique, I'm careful not to pick up the blonde pieces. It is very important that we don't then start taking away the colour work that we did previously. I then applied a diluted 8/8 shade, which has been diluted 2 parts to 1 part colour, 2 parts of which was a clear shade, making it a level 10 all over the rest of the hair to give it this beautiful rich caramel mocha shade that I absolutely love. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you have, then please hit that thumbs up button, talk to me down in the comments, tell me what you think of the technique. I love to hear from you, and I will always get back to you. It will always take a few days, however, but thank you for watching and have a wonderful week. Stay safe, stay at home, and I will see you again next Sunday for another episode of The Life of Hair, and Wednesday this week to hopefully alleviate some of the boredom of sitting around at home.